Richard Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown. Total disbelief at Ford Field.
He may go all the way to the 20 down the right side, and there's Randall Cobb to the 5, to the end zone, to the touchdown. Oh my goodness.
Hey everybody, welcome to the second season of the Green and Golden Boys Packers podcast. This is the podcast for Packer fans living inside enemy territory. I'm Charles, and with me is Marcus.
Hey everybody.
Hey, and Marcus, we're back. We took a little bit of a break, but it's draft week, and I think it was time to dust off the old microphones and get back on the air. What do you say?
Absolutely. It's been a long break. I think we both will, well needed for both of us, but I think we're both really excited to get back into discussing the Packers.
Yeah, I love it. Well, hey, the Packers are coming off back-to-back NFC Championship losses, and honestly, we didn't do much in terms of free agency. Well, let me clarify. We didn't grab too many non-Packer free agents. We re-signed a lot of our own. We'll talk about that a little bit here as we kind of start to preview the 2021 draft. But essentially, the 2021 starters are virtually all the same as the 2021 starters are virtually all the same coming this year, with the exception of Christian Kirksey, the inside linebacker who moved down to Houston, I believe. And then, unfortunately, we did not re-sign Corey Linsley, who I believe is now the most paid, top paid center over for the LA Chargers. So it's draft week. The team is looking very similar. Marcus, with a team that theoretically is ready, just one piece away from the Super Bowl, where do you see this week going? Do you think we're going offense? Think we're going defense? And I guess give me your overall thoughts and excitement about this week's draft.
Yeah, and I'm going to just rehash one point from last season, and that is I don't know that the Packers are one piece away. I think we could argue that they had all the pieces in play last year, and we just had a subpar performance in the championship game, and that's why we weren't able to make it to the Super Bowl. But that being said, you talked about Corey Linsley and the loss. It's a big loss for our offensive line. David Bakhtiari, probably not going to be ready to go at the beginning of the season. I saw some video of him the other day. He looked pretty good, for having a torn ACL or MCL. I forget what it was, but he looks good. But I doubt he's going to be ready for the season opener. I think based on that information, the Packers go offensive line in the first round. We've seen Gutekunst trade up 2 years in a row in the first round. I don't know if there's an offensive lineman that's that valuable to them to do that. What do you think?
Yeah, that's interesting. I do not think we're going to move up for O-line just because historically, and this is kind of going back to Ted Thompson and then even just Elton Jenkins a few years back, historically we're not moving up in first rounds for those O-line. And we've made a habit of developing our own. Bakhtiari, the 6th round draft pick. And this is a fairly deep offensive line draft is what I am reading. So I don't know if O-line is what we move up for, but I do think with 2 picks in the 4th, 2 picks in the 5th, and 2 picks in the 6th, I would not be surprised if, much like last year, a good portion of those are to fill in some of those gaps on the O-line.
Yeah, and what I was thinking too is if it's a deep offensive line draft class, we may have an opportunity to get somebody really athletic, somebody who's versatile. I mean, that tends to be the trend for the Packers is trying to find guys who are athletic and able to play a couple of different positions on the O-line. Maybe we want somebody who can play center and tackle or center and guard. Obviously, the last 2 years, we've had to kind of shuffle guys around on the offensive line. It seemed almost every week, there weren't that many games we stringed together with the same guys starting at the same position. So it'll be interesting. But go ahead.
Well, you went straight offensive line kind of when we opened the conversation. What would you say your top 3 positions of need now and long term for this team is? And if you could, kind of dream draft, if all the players fell to you correctly, what would your 1, 2, and 3 be for your top three picks in terms of position?
Man, I think we want to go somebody. I honestly somebody who could play tackle, left tackle, right tackle. Somebody ideally who can maybe in 2 or 3 or 4 years step into David Bakhtiari's shoes and kind of fulfill that blind side. So that is what I would guess is find somebody who plays on the left side of the O line. Again, somebody athletic and versatile. I'd say number 2 would be, a center, somebody who can, kind of fill Corey Linsley's shoes, but can also maybe be a little bit more versatile, play a little bit of guard, and then I would say the third would be the guard position. But I guess that's what I would.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So you want all three offensive line. So O line is I would say is your number 1 pick. Do you put receiver or defensive line? You know what I mean. Like where else besides the O line would you go 2 and 3?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, position-wise, top 3, I would say O-line is my gut for the first round. If it's deep, we might trade down and find somebody at a better value. I would say number 2 would be defensive line. I think we have a solid defensive line, with guys like Kenny Clark and Lancaster and Kingsley Keke. I still think we need to solidify that a little bit more, maybe have another guy that can, fit into the rotation. Just at the very least to give the other guys a little bit of a break, here and there, especially when we get down the stretch. But number 3, I keep kind of wavering. I'm like, is it a wide receiver? Is it a cornerback? Is it an inside linebacker? If I had to choose one, I would honestly say inside linebacker. You mentioned we lost Christian Kirksey, which, I think we saw by the end of the season he wasn't even probably the number 3 inside linebacker. I think we've got a couple of young guys who are going to play really well this year. Guys like Chris Barnes and Kamal Martin. I think those guys are really kind of up and coming. They're going to play, kind of be the number 1 and 2 for sure. But compared to other inside linebacker cores in the NFL, I don't think we're very, we don't really match up. So that's my number 3 would be inside linebacker, somebody who's athletic, fast, somebody big, maybe 6'2", 6'3", somebody who can, get lateral side to side, a good pass defender. That would be my number 3.
Okay. I want to get to kind of my list here in a second, but I find it interesting that the 3 kind of position groups that you just mentioned, I mean, I guess offensive line obviously is huge and contradicts this statement, but you didn't mention, kind of playmaker type, give Aaron Rodgers weapons first thing. So 2 questions. A, do you think that was overplayed last year? And B, do you think the fact that this could be Aaron Rodgers' last year if the Green Bay Packers, do you think that kind of changes the way this team is drafting, knowing that this is his last year, either for giving him weapons or for saying, let's build a team for Jordan Love?
Well, look, the Packers had the best offense in the league last year. So anybody saying that we need to add to the offense is, I don't know what they're talking about. I mean, obviously the offensive picks are a lot sexier than maybe an O lineman, but the reason the Packers are winning year in and year out is because they have depth at most positions. Aaron Rodgers makes everybody better. I don't think necessarily we're going to spend a draft pick in the first or second round on an offensive playmaker. I mean, give me one example of a time the Packers did that. I mean, you're talking about Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams, Greg Jennings, Aaron Jones, any of these guys. These are second, third, fourth, fifth round picks. Okay, the Packers find value in that. And you mentioned it earlier. The Packers have 2 picks in the 4th round, 2 picks in the 5th, and 2 in the 6th. Now we're going to take some shots on playmakers. I think the question is, where is that value? Again, we're hearing that this is a deep wide receiver draft class. So I expect in, between the 3rd and the 6th rounds, the Packers to take 2 or 3 shots at wide receiver. I think we're pretty solid at tight end and running back. So again, it wouldn't surprise me if the Packers end this draft with 3 wide receivers between the 3rd and the 6th round.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a first or second pick though.
I agree with that 100%. And my rant at the end of last year of that we were 1 or 2 plays away potentially of being in the Super Bowl kind of proves our point of we weren't a receiver away, right? We had the weapons there that we needed. A few interesting things to note, though. As of now, today, we're talking on April 25th, Sunday. the Packers do not have a 2022 receiver signed under contract. I'm sure Devontae Adams is going to get an extension here any day now, any month now, or whatnot. But, receiver is something we will address this draft. I just don't think it's going to be, like you said, in the first round or even two. Another point, I asked the question, so obviously I did some research a little bit before this, but you already mentioned this is a deep receiver class, right? The consensus is this is the receiver is the deepest position in this draft, followed by offensive tackles, then followed by interior O-line, and then edge rusher, and then coming in at fifth is corner. And corner is the one position that you did not mention, even though we both were texting each other, rolling our eyes, that we re-signed Kevin King this year. I think if I had to go 1, 2, and 3, what are the core positions that we need to address here this draft to make us better, not only this year immediate impact, but also long-term to fortify that defense for a potentially new quarterback next year? I think you mentioned it. Goody tends to move up in drafts. If he were to move up in this draft, I think it's because he's eyeing up a corner that might be there in the low 20s. And the name that I keep reading about is this Caleb Farley. Now, he apparently is one of the consensus top corners in the draft. He sat out last year because of COVID, and he recently had some back issues. But he is one guy that, if he truly is someone that this team feels like can make an immediate impact now and down the line with Jair Alexander on the other side of him, I think that's got to be our number one target if we think we can move up to get him. Because, man, it's frustrating to see Kevin King miss half the games, right? But then it's also frustrating obviously everyone has bad games, and I feel for him that it was the NFC Championship game last year. But to see him get torched the way he did against Tampa Bay, I just think that's something that if that's the number one pick overall, I don't think Packer fans, number one pick for the Packers, I don't think we can be upset at going corner on Thursday night.
Yeah, you make a really good point. King's game against the Buccaneers was awful. To say the least. He was probably put in a bad position too, to do a little bit of coaching, and the Packers obviously made a coaching change at defensive coordinator in this offseason. But that being said, the reason I didn't choose cornerback is because I think we have 3 or 4 solid guys at the position. Okay, we've got Jair Alexander, who's probably arguably the best corner in the game. Okay, we've got Josh Jackson, Kevin King, and then we just re-signed Chandon Sullivan too, who had a really good season last year.
Yep.
All things considered. King. I agree. We rolled our eyes when we re-signed him because he's been inconsistent, and he's been just flat out bad at times. But he's made some really strong plays. I can't argue with that logic, wanting to get a corner for sure. Pro Football Focus has Caleb Farley going at 23. So trading up from 29 to 23 is not out of the realm of possibility. That said, they also have Asante Samuel Jr. from Florida State ranked at 29 in round 1. So, yeah, the Packers could take a corner in the first round. It could be somebody that falls to us at 29, or, again, it wouldn't surprise me if we traded up for a corner. It'll be really interesting to see because to your point, that's a glaring need for sure. But at the same time,
and what I've been reading, and by no means am I the expert on this, but the Colts getting Wentz are a little draft pick light, and I think the Colts are right there in that low 20, high teen area where potentially the Packers could make a move. We would likely need to give up, a second and a third round pick. And if we follow my logic of going for someone, low 20s, give up a second and a third, if this truly is a receiver deep and an offensive tackle and interior deep draft class, if I could choose today, right now, with the right to change my opinion tomorrow, to me it would be amazing to give up some of those kind of second and third round picks, and then just go heavy on receiver and O-line, in that 4, 5, and 6, and hey, maybe even move up a little bit. I think I read something of the top 100 players, 44 of them